Welcome to Gather In, where you'll hear stories of conversion to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. If you have an interesting story to tell, please go to our Instagram page or send us an email to gatherin@proton.me. Welcome everyone. Now, I have very few followers because I've only just started this Instagram channel recently, and I have very few followers. So all the people joining today, Andre, will most likely be your followers. And I know you have a lot of people following you, and that's how I found you originally on Instagram. You started doing a live stream one night, and I thought, oh, who's this? And so I started listening to, you were doing a report. I think this was back on the 12th of February, you're doing a weekly report. And I listened to your weekly report. And I was the guy that asked you to turn the music down a little bit because I couldn't hear your voice very well because the music was a little bit loud in the background. I don't know if you remember me asking you to turn down the music. But I was very interested in what you were saying. And I had no idea at the time who you were. Since then, I've been listening to your live Instagram feeds, and I've looked back on a lot of your posts over the last, just ones over the last month or so, just to see what you were doing over there in Ukraine. And hence I asked you also at the time if you were a convert to the church. And so the purpose of my channel is to gather conversion stories, and that's why I want to talk to you tonight. I want to find out how you came to be a member of the church. But before we get onto that story, and I'm sure you've got an interesting story to tell about becoming a member of the church, I presume in Ukraine. I just want to ask you about the situation in Ukraine at the moment. As you know, I'm in Australia. And the people who will see this through my channel are Australians. We hear about Ukraine and well, we don't call it a war, it's a special military operation in the Ukraine, isn't it? That's what the Russians are calling it, a special military operation. It doesn't sound very special to me. It sounds like a terrible situation. And I've looked at the geography, I've looked at where you live. You live very near Kharkiv, which is the second largest city in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And I know you went to the temple last week, and that's about a 6-hour drive from Kharkiv. Am I saying that correctly, Kharkiv?
Yeah, you're saying it right.
Close enough. That's the Australian way of saying it. So, Andre, traveling from Kharkiv to Kiev, is that all safe through that area of Ukraine? Are you safe? Where you live, are you safe, and is it a safe journey to Kiev?
Well, it's been already a whole year. Like 2 days ago, it's been a year mark since the operation started. And for us who stayed in Ukraine for this year and lived here, now we don't feel like it's dangerous because we're used to all the bombings and all the shellings and all the loud noises. So I would say it's safe, but for people who, like, if you would come here, you would be probably, I don't know, but I would assume that you would be quite scared because of the noises and, bombings and shellings and stuff. But I survived a year, and so did so many other people who live here in Ukraine. So for us, it's now a new normal, and that's how we live, because the life didn't stop last year in the end of February. We continued to live on and get on with our lives. So that's how we are doing right now. And of course, it's more safer now, because now we have trains going back and forth, cars. Many people came back to their homes. So,
okay, so people who left Ukraine early on, 12 months ago or so, they're starting to come back into Ukraine now. They feel safer coming home now?
Some of them are homesick, so they're coming back. Some
Yeah.
of them don't have more funds to live on somewhere else, so they come back because there is nothing else that they can do. And some of them just decide it's safe now, and they come back with their families. Sometimes they would just come, pick up something, and go back to where they came from. But some people are coming back, and now we can see it. Many more businesses are opening, many more stores. People are buying, selling stuff, more cars on the roads. So
Yeah. And so just a little bit more geography for my benefit and the benefit of other Australians who aren't that familiar with Ukraine. From where you live near Kharkiv, I can't remember the name of your town. Starts with P.
No.
What's the name of your town?
I'm living in Kharkov. That's
okay.
talking about.
Okay. So how far is it from there to the dangerous areas where there is a lot of fighting going on? How far away is that?
About, I would say, half an hour drive to the border with Russia.
Oh, is that all?
Yeah. So Kharkov is right on the border with Russia. It's like 60 kilometers to the other country, to Russia.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Okay.
Here it's.
I'm just going to look at my map there and get a. Oh yeah. Okay. I can see that. Yeah. So I'm surprised that you're safe where you are, but I'm glad to hear you are. So we hear the fighting in the Donbass region and Donetsk.
Yeah, well, they've been fighting there since 2014, so it's not like something new is happening there. But yeah, right now, the more active phase of this invasion is happening right down there.
Yeah. Okay. So you're to the north of the really heavy fighting areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So looking at some of your videos, it does look like life is sort of normal. As you said, it's the new normal for you in Ukraine now. Something I'm intrigued with is that I see that you do a lot of food deliveries.
Yep.
Now, is this something you were doing prior to the invasion? Or is this something that you've just started doing since the invasion? Is there a greater need for this sort of thing because of the invasion? What's the history there?
A little bit of my background. Before the war, I was working. I own my own business, and I deliver food, farm food. So I would find local farmers, work with them, make sure that they produce good quality fruits or vegetables or milk, dairy, bread and stuff, and I would deliver it to people. That was my.
Okay.
And when the invasion happened, I felt like, well, I have everything already set up to help people, and that's how it's all started.
Okay, that's very interesting. So, is there more demand for your food deliveries now because of the war?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because so people are coming back, but some of them don't have jobs. Most of them don't have jobs. Most of them have spent all their savings, and now the only way that they could survive is to rely on the help that somebody else could provide for them.
So you were in a good position, I guess, to continue to be able to help people. And I've been intrigued with, some of the people you're helping. It seems that sometimes you're just helping people and almost giving away food to some people when you have excess, perhaps. Is there a food shortage in Ukraine?
It was, but not anymore. But the prices went tripled or even 4 times more than it used to be. So sometimes it's, I mean, not possible to buy like regular stuff because it's so expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So if people go into the supermarkets in Ukraine, they can go in there and there's food in there. There's other
Yeah.
commodities in there that are needed. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, that's fantastic. And I know you mentioned about attending church in Ukraine. That the wards and branches, the attendance was quite low there for a while, but people are starting to come back. So more people are coming to church. Can I ask about, you went to the temple last week. Were there a lot of people attending the temple while you were there?
Well, we had about 40 people who came from our stake, and that's basically the whole stake who left here.
Yeah. Okay.
So most of the people are still somewhere abroad or in different parts of Ukraine. In 2010, and before that time and during that time until the 2014, there was no division between Russians or Ukrainians, and everybody was, just as one nation. Not obviously not one nation, but same people, same language. So there was nothing. I mean, I couldn't recall that Russians were first or Ukrainians were first. It was just same.
Okay, because it was all, as you say, all one country back then. So, yeah, look, this is all, I find it personally interesting. Just a bit of a hint, my ancestry on my father's side, my father's mother and her parents left Russia back at the start of the Russian Revolution, back around 1916, 17, something like that. I'm not sure of the exact year. So my family background on that side is Russian. On my mother's side, it's Scottish. So we have a little bit of a connection there, because I understand you served a mission in Scotland.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fantastic. So, Andre, thanks.
Are you from Brisbane, right? From Brisbane mission?
I'm in the Brisbane mission. My wife and I are in the Brisbane mission. We're in far north Queensland, so we're 1,000 miles away. We are 1,700 kilometres north of the Brisbane mission office.
Yeah,
we're a long way.
A friend on the mission, sister missionary. I don't know if you probably would not know her. Her name is Jade McGowan, and she was a good friend of mine on a mission.
Oh, okay. She's here in the mission at the moment?
No, I don't know where. Well, she's in the States traveling right now, but I think she still lives in somewhere in Australia.
Okay. My wife and I are actually from down near Melbourne in Victoria, so we're about 3,000 kilometres from home.
Right. That's far away.
It's virtually like being in a different country. The climate is totally different up here. Very tropical up here. Yeah. So, Andre, thanks for all that information. I mean, that's really helpful. It's really interesting to know, and we don't know what to believe on the news sources when we hear about things going on in Ukraine. So it's really good to hear from someone directly like yourself who's living there, right in amongst it. It's very good. Thank you. So what I'd like to ask you about now, Andre, is going back to a little bit about your family history. So I gather you grew up in Ukraine. Your family's all Ukrainian, is that correct?
Well, my immediate family, yes.
Yeah. And extended family, going back a generation or two?
My grandfather is from Afghanistan, and from my mother's line, and then my father's line is from Poland.
From where, sorry?
Poland.
Poland, okay. And Poland is a neighbouring country to Ukraine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you grew up in Ukraine, and your family, were church-going people? What's the history with your family in that respect?
Well, no, we weren't churchgoers. Most people here in Ukraine, and like we went to the church only on Christmas. No, we didn't go on Christmas. We went only on Easter.
Okay.
So Easter, that's when we went to the church once a year.
Oh, okay. Okay. But, culturally, I'm guessing the Russian Orthodox Church is the main church in Ukraine, is it? Or is there a Ukrainian Orthodox Church?
Well, Russian Orthodox Church, and then, of course, when they split the countries, they decided to call it Ukrainian Orthodox. It's so weird, but same church, same beliefs, same temples, all the same Bible that they use. So.
Yeah. So your once a year visit to church was to the Orthodox Church.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was a fun day for everybody to get together, because the tradition is that you go night before Easter. So Saturday night, you go to the temple, and there's a whole bunch of people. They in the temple and around the temple, and they have the basket with the food, and they have to stay during the night around the temple, just waiting for the priest to come in the morning and sprinkle them with holy water and bless the food that they have. So that was the fun for me as a kid to, first to stay up late night and be outside, and then have this, traditions that my father has lived.
Yeah. Okay. So an Orthodox temple. I wasn't even aware that the Orthodox Church had temples. In our towns and cities in Australia, we see Orthodox churches, and I don't know the difference between an Orthodox church and an Orthodox temple. But obviously, the Orthodox temples are nothing at all like our temples.
Well, the Orthodox Church is the Orthodox temple. That's how they call their buildings, temples. And
okay.
you can separate them from the other temples because they have this golden heads on top of the building.
Okay.
It's pretty cool how they look. They look really, really nice. And
yeah. I can remember studying art when I was at high school in Victoria, and one of our assignments was to go and visit the Orthodox churches in the town that I grew up in, and check out the architecture, because it was totally different to other churches in our city. Okay, Andre, so you grew up in the attending Orthodox church once a year at Easter. At some point in your life, you came across missionaries from our church, or did you have a friend who was a member of our church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? How did that come about that you became a member of the church?
Well, when I was around 13 probably, we met members of Jehovah's Witnesses. Two nice ladies. They would come, and I was living with my mom, and they would teach us, or try to teach us, the principles or whatever they do teach. And for me, as for a 13-year-old guy, it was really difficult to understand what they mean and what this is all about. I couldn't grasp the doctrine, and but they were really nice, and they would come and go, and I don't know what they were teaching. I don't remember. But then one day, when things were really bad for me and for my mom, we didn't have any money. We didn't have any place to stay. We spent Mom spent her last money that she had, and she rented this apartment where other people would live. So there was 4 rooms, and we occupied one of the rooms. and she was really sick as well at that time. She had diabetes, and she didn't treat it because she didn't know how, and because of that she had more other problems with her health. And it was a winter holiday in school, so I would go and visit my grandma in the village nearby, and my mom would stay home. But then and my mom wouldn't like open the doors to anyone because she couldn't get up from her bed and go to the door simply. And one night she felt so bad, like health-wise, like she was this, from her words. I haven't been there, so I don't know. She was suffering, and as she says, she was dying. The pain was so excruciating, and she decided to pray. We never prayed at home. It was not our, something that we do. Nobody taught us how to pray. And so she, just with her words, she prayed, and then she asked the Lord to forgive her.
Yeah.
And then the next day, she heard a knock on the door, and usually she wouldn't open the door. But that time she, I don't know, probably found strength or was prompted to answer the door. And she saw two missionaries, two elders standing there, speaking in well, they were speaking Russian, but she couldn't understand a word that they were saying because, it was not their language that they spoke. And she didn't get anything that they were talking about to her. But they left her pamphlets, and then in a couple of days, sister missionaries came. So I guess elders referred my mom to the sisters, and so sisters came and met my mom. And during this time, I was at my grandma for the holidays. And back then, we didn't have cell phones, so we didn't have any means to communicate. So when I came from my holidays, from my winter holidays at my grandma, I came home and I found all those like books and pamphlets and hymn books and Book of Mormon, and my mom wasn't home. And I was like, doesn't look like Jehovah's Witnesses literature, because they have these journals that you when you see it, it's Jehovah's Witnesses journal.
Yeah.
So my mom came. She was attending some activities at church, and she explained me. She told me that she met these missionaries and got baptized all during this like short period of 2 or 3 weeks when I was on my school break. So and then sister missionaries would come and teach like new member lessons, I think they called it, and I was there as well, and they taught me lessons. So in the beginning of February, I got baptized too, and it was so when they would come, things that they were teaching us, even in broken Russian, did make so much more sense than we heard from Jehovah's Witnesses, from those ladies that would speak our language.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the story.
Yeah. Okay. How old were you then, Andre?
14.
14.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So how did that change your life?
Well, I mean, changed greatly. In the branch where we were members and still members in the same branch, they had a member who specialized on diabetes. So he was able to help my mom to understand her sickness and to get better and get like her glucose and in average norm, and she was able to, take care of herself and get better. And then, of course, I didn't have any plans or didn't know how to set plans or goals for my life or for any period of time. But then going to the church, I learned that that's the something that you do. And then I decided, well, I have to do better at school. And it was so interesting how this works and how I can apply things that I learned in the church, apply to my real and everyday life. And it worked. And for me, as a young, impressionable mind, it was mind-blowing because, I never had anything like that in my life. And then when I saw how the principles or obeying the principles of the gospel changed my life, my everyday life, my um, uh, things that I did with the friends and my priorities, stuff like that. It was just so amazing to see the change in myself, and it was big because I could see it myself. I could see that now I changed friends because those friends are smoking and they drinking, and that's not something that I'm interested in. And I found myself new friends, not because I didn't love those guys. I loved them, but we didn't share like something in common. So, and so many other things that happened in my life because of the church. Of course, um, I never had plans to go to the university, and I went to the university because, the prophets teach us that we need to obtain the education, and no one from my family ever been like in a higher education.
Okay, so in a very practical sense, becoming a member of the church has made a huge difference to your life and to the life of your mother, I guess. And were there siblings, brothers and sisters that you had at the time who also joined the church with you, or
No,
was it just you and your mum?
me and my mom. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So another thing I'm interested in, Andre, very, very practical blessings that came into your life because you followed the teachings of the church, of the prophets, as far as how you organise your life and planned your life. But embracing the gospel also would have been a big change for you spiritually. I mean, prior to becoming a member of the church, as you said, you attended the Orthodox Church once a year at Easter. So prior to becoming a member of the church, your understanding of Heavenly Father, of Jesus Christ, of the Holy Ghost, where was that at, and how has that changed since you were taught the gospel?
Well, I never been taught anything before. We met missionaries or before we met Jehovah's Witnesses. I would give them credit because they introduced us to the Godhead in their own way, of course. But before that, I never had any understanding of God and Christ. Of course, I knew Jesus Christ. This is the common name, and of course, I would believe in God in some kind of way. Not practical, just I would think that there is some higher being, but I never huge or any attention to that matter. And then after I've been introduced to the gospel, I started to understand and learn more and more about God, and that I can develop a relationship, personal relationship with them. And that makes so much sense to me now.
Okay, that's fantastic. And so 13 or 14, when you were baptized and confirmed a member of the church, at some stage you ended up serving as a full-time missionary for the church yourself in Scotland, I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So from the very moment when I learned that I could become a missionary, I could become like those two elders who came to us. That was my biggest desire, because I wanted to be that person for somebody else.
That's fantastic. I relate to that very strongly. I was a convert at the age of 24, and 18 months later, I was serving as a missionary in New Zealand. So I didn't have the benefit, perhaps, of the good few years you had in the church before you went on a mission. How old were you when you served as a missionary in Scotland?
I think I was 23. I'm not sure.
Okay. So that would have been a really big thing for you to leave your mum behind while you went off to Scotland for 2 years. How did your mum cope with that?
I don't know. In her own way, she survived. That was good for her to be more self-reliant and to learn that she could do it on her own, and that she could survive and she was able to take care of herself. So
yeah. I'm sure she would have been very proud of her son being a missionary, huh?
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. And so you've been home from your mission now. How many years have you been home from your mission?
It's been too long, about 17 years now.
Oh, really? 17 years? Okay. I was thinking it might have been 4 or 5 years at a guess, I'm looking at you thinking you're about 30 years old or so, but I think you might be a little bit older than 30.
I am.
But that's okay. That's okay. So tell me, since you've been home from your mission, what callings have you served in the church, and what's your current role in the church?
There have been so many callings that I had, but some of them, of course, I've been a teacher many times in many different auxiliaries. Yeah, that's how you call it, auxiliaries.
Organisations now we call them. We don't call them auxiliaries anymore.
And then I've been an elders president. I've been branch president. I've been self-reliance specialist for the state. That's one of my favorite. And now I'm the primary teacher in my branch, and then as a high counselor in the stake.
Okay. So you've had every calling possible as a single man, by the sound of things.
Yeah.
And you've avoided getting married because you didn't want to be a bishop or a stake president, right?
That's true.
That's fantastic. Look, it's been really good talking to you, Andre. I want to ask you a couple more questions before we finish off and go too long. There's a couple of little posts you did just recently and I'm wondering if it's your mother or maybe your grandmother, a very old lady who had her Bible wrapped up in a a little towel, like a tea towel. She had a Bible wrapped up, and you and for a young lady called Veronica took her a Book of Mormon, and she kissed the Book of Mormon and said something like, "You've been sent from God." That was a really touching video. You know, my wife and I both were sort of fighting back the tears as we watched that. Who was that lady? Who is that lady?
That's just another lady. She's a refugee from Donbass area, and she lives here now by herself. She has no family, and sometimes when I have chance, I just go there and visit her. And first we brought her Bible, this big one, because she had a tiny little one that she couldn't read because her eyesight is not that great. So we found her the biggest Bible possible in Russian, and we brought her that. And then next time we came, we showed up with the Book of Mormon.
Okay. So I gather she's not a member of the church yet.
No.
She's just someone you've met, someone you wanted to help, and
Yeah, sure.
yeah, that's fantastic, Andre. I've got a lot of admiration for you in doing what you're doing there. Looks like you're doing great work, and there's a lot of people following you on Instagram. Something like 19,000 followers you have on Instagram, which is fantastic. There's been quite a lot of people joining this live interview here. And I'd just like to invite anyone who's joined us to follow my channel, Gather 4470, and follow there, and you'll see more videos that I've done with more people who are converts to the church. So I'd be really honoured if any of your followers were to join me as well. Andre, just a couple of last questions I'd like to ask. I'd like you to finish with bearing your testimony for us. But before that, I'd just like to ask you if there's something about the gospel or about the doctrine or the practices of the church that's your sort of favourite thing, whether it be, perhaps the temple or working with the youth or whatever. Is there a favourite thing you have in the gospel?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My favorite part in the gospel, and it's probably wrong to say the favorite part because there's so many parts that we love and adore and apply every day in our life. But one of the things that I love personally is that we are able to develop our personal relationship with God and with Jesus Christ, and we don't need for that a priest or a book or anything at all. We just, his children, and he's our Father, and he wants us to develop this relationship. He wants us to know him and to learn from him, and that's what I learned, and that's one of the doctrines that I really, really love and embrace.
Thank you. Yeah, that's it's hard to beat that as being a favourite part of the gospel. That's it, isn't it? Developing that relationship with God and having that desire to go back to Him. That's what the gospel's all about. And the very practical aspects of the gospel, which you mentioned earlier, are just fantastic as well. Andre, if you would like to finish off by bearing your testimony, I'd be honoured to hear that. And I'd just like to thank everyone else for joining with us, whether it's morning, afternoon, or night, wherever you are. It's 9 o'clock in the evening here in Australia. It's about close to 1 o'clock in the afternoon in Ukraine. For any Americans on here, I guess it's very early in the morning in the United States at the moment, depending on where you are. But thanks all for joining. Really appreciate you coming in. Andre, I'll just let you finish off.
Yeah, one thing that I like is that with the social media, we now able to record and save and preserve our testimonies for probably forever. I don't know, but for some time for sure, and for bigger public, not just for us personally in our journals, but for many people who are watching and who are listening to that. In my 24 years being a member of the church, my testimony grew a lot, and of course our life is difficult and different, and we have ups and downs. But one thing that I know for sure, that God is our Heavenly Father, and that He loves us and He cares about us. And despite all things that is happening in our life, the main thing for Him is for us to be happy here on this life. And I know that He gave us all the instruments in our hands at our disposal to obtain this happiness and be successful and to be an effective instrument. Because when we apply the gospel in our life, that means that He could use us for better good, for better life for somebody else, and for us, for our family as well. So whatever you do, whatever you go through right now in your life or will go through, I want you to remember that there's a Heavenly Father who loves you. Who loves you and who wants you to be happy. And whatever you are going through in your life, just remember that He is the one who will always listen to you and strengthen you when you need this. And my life is a living testimony that God supports us and that He has a plan for us, that He wants us to succeed in this life, in all aspects of our life, our spiritual life, as well as in our physical life, our physical health, as well as our professional life. And turning back and looking to these past 24 years, I see how I've been blessed and how He prepared me for next assignment and next assignment and next assignment, and how He prepared people around me and gave me things, instruments to accomplish what He wants me to accomplish. And as far as I could see, I know that He loves me, and this is the greatest knowledge that anyone can have in this life. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Andre. That's fantastic. It's just been a pleasure talking to you. Wish you all the best with your endeavours in Ukraine and your service in the kingdom. And we hope and pray that things will get better in Ukraine, that peace will prevail eventually. You're in our prayers. It's been just great talking to you, and I'll be following your videos. Don't worry, I'll always be watching and wanting to know what's going on. So thanks again, Andre. All the best, and thanks all for following and listening today. Thank you. Bye-bye.
If you have an interesting story to tell, please contact us via our Instagram page or send an email to gatherin@proton.me.